Welcome, and let the world grow soft and quiet around you. As your breathing slows, all on its own, imagine lifting your eyes gently toward the great winter sky, toward the vast shape of Orion, the hunter striding across the dark. And there, upon his broad shoulder, a single deep and glowing ember of a star, red as a fading coal, ancient and enormous and slowly drawing toward the end of its long life. Its name is Betelgeuse, and it is old now, and restless and quietly dying. Tonight we will sit together with this great red star, one gentle fact at a time, and let its slow and patient light carry us softly down into sleep. There is nothing at all you need to hold on to now. Just breathe, and let go, and welcome back to Beyond the Stars. The first fact is that Betelgeuse is a star, a single, enormous sun far larger and far brighter than our own, glowing that deep and unmistakable red upon the shoulder of the constellation Orion. It is what astronomers call a red supergiant, one of the very largest kinds of star there is, and one of the biggest that we can ever see with the unaided eye. When you find it in the winter sky, low and warm and softly burning, you are looking across hundreds of years of empty space at a dying giant. A star so vast that our whole sun, and all the little planets around it, would be lost like a single grain of sand somewhere deep inside it. The second fact is that the strange and beautiful name Betelgeuse comes to us from the old Arabic astronomers, from a phrase that has been worn down and reshaped over many centuries of retelling. It is usually taken to mean something like the hand or the shoulder of the Great One, the giant figure that we now call Orion. Its more formal name, the one astronomers use, is Alpha Orionis, which simply marks it as one of the chief stars of that constellation. But it is the older name we love, Betelgeuse, soft and rolling on the tongue, a word carried down to us across 1,000 years of people looking up at the very same red star. The third fact is that Betelgeuse belongs to Orion, perhaps the most easily recognized of all the constellations, the great hunter who strides across the winter nights. You can find him by his belt, 3 bright stars set in a short, straight, tidy row, unlike anything else in the sky. From that belt, look up and to one side to find Betelgeuse glowing red at the hunter's shoulder, and down to the other to find brilliant blue-white Rigel at his foot. Between them hang the fainter stars of his sword and his cloak. A whole striding figure sketched in distant suns, with our dying red giant burning quietly at its very shoulder. The fourth fact is that Betelgeuse marks the hunter's shoulder, and by long tradition it is his right shoulder, though as we look up at him from the earth it appears on our upper left. A warm red point set high in the figure, balancing the cool blue star Rigel far below. The two of them, red above and blue beneath, give Orion a striking sense of shape and depth, as though the giant were leaning slightly toward us out of the dark. And of all his stars, it is Betelgeuse, that single ember of red, that most draws and holds the quiet eye on a clear and frosty night. The fifth fact is that Betelgeuse is what we call a red supergiant, and each of those words tells us something gentle and true about it. Red, because its surface is relatively cool, and cool stars glow with that soft ruddy light, just as the dying embers of a fire fade from yellow to orange to deep and quiet red. Supergiant, because it is simply enormous, swollen to a size almost beyond imagining, hundreds of times wider than our own Sunday. Put those words together and you have the whole nature of the star in a breath. A cool, red, colossal sun, near the very end of its life, burning low and vast against the dark. The sixth fact is that Betelgeuse is one of the brightest stars in all the night sky, usually ranking somewhere around the 10th brightest that we can see. A genuine beacon, easy to pick out even from a city glowing with its own restless light. Much of that brightness comes not from any fierce heat, for its surface is quite cool, but simply from its tremendous size, for a star so vast pours out a great flood of light even while glowing gently red. It is a quiet lesson in how the cosmos works, that something can be cool and calm at its surface, and yet, by sheer immensity, still shine as one of the brightest lamps in the heavens. The seventh fact is that although Betelgeuse is dying, it is in truth a very young star, far younger than our own steady sun. It was born perhaps only 8 or 10 million years ago, a mere eye blink in the long life of the cosmos, while our sun has shone quietly for some 4.5 billion years. The secret is that the most massive stars live fast and burn out early, racing through their fuel in a fraction of the time. And so Betelgeuse, though it is already old and swollen and near its end, has actually existed for only the tiniest sliver of the age of the Earth beneath your feet. The eighth fact is that Betelgeuse is a truly massive star, holding within it something like 15 to 20 times the material of our entire sun. It is that great mass which has shaped its whole swift and dramatic destiny. For the heavier a star is born, the hotter and fiercer its core must burn simply to hold itself up against its own crushing weight. And so it has raced through its long store of fuel in only a few million years, where a smaller star might have lingered for billions. Its size, its brilliance, its dying, and the violent end that awaits it all flow from that one simple fact, that it was born so very, very heavy. The ninth fact is that finding Betelgeuse in the sky is one of the simplest pleasures of a clear winter night. At least for those who live north of the equator, you need only find Orion's belt, those 3 bright stars in their short straight row, and then look upward from them to the warm red star that crowns the figure. It rides high in the evening sky through the cold months, from about November into March, glowing softly above the frosted world. For those in the southern half of the Earth, the same star appears in the warm nights of their winter, hanging upside down. But everywhere on Earth, it is the same red shoulder, the same dying giant. The 10th fact is that Betelgeuse forms one corner of a lovely pattern that stargazers call the winter triangle, a great, near-perfect triangle of 3 brilliant stars that hangs over the whole northern winter sky. The other 2 corners are Sirius, the very brightest star in all the night, and Procyon, another bright and nearby sun. Draw a line between the 3 and you frame a wide, luminous span of sky, with the soft red of Betelgeuse at one point of it. It is one of the easiest and most satisfying shapes to trace on a cold, clear evening. A quiet geometry of distant suns, drawn gently across the dark. The 11th fact is that Betelgeuse sits not only in that triangle but within an even grander shape, the great ring of stars known as the winter hexagon, or the winter circle, a wide loop of 6 brilliant stars, Sirius, Procyon, the twins of Gemini, Capella, Aldebaran, and Rigel, sweeps in a vast circle across the winter sky, and Betelgeuse glows quietly near its very center. It is as though all the brightest lamps of winter had gathered themselves into a ring, with the dying red giant burning softly in the middle, the warm red heart of the coldest, clearest, most star-filled quarter of the whole turning year. The 12th fact is that even to the unaided eye, without any telescope at all, the color of Betelgeuse is plain and lovely to see, while most stars appear simply white or faintly blue. This one glows with a soft, warm, orange-red light, like a distant coal or a low candle flame. Hold your gaze on it for a moment on a clear night and the color deepens and steadies, unmistakable among all its paler neighbors. That gentle ruddiness is the direct sign of a cool surface, a star not blazing white-hot, but glowing quietly at the temperature of a fire that has burned low, warm and red and calm against the black. The 13th fact is that Betelgeuse is what astronomers call a variable star, meaning that its brightness does not hold perfectly steady, but slowly rises and falls over time. It is a semi-regular variable, which is a gentle way of saying that it dims and brightens in a loose, wandering rhythm, never quite the same twice. Over months and years it swells and settles, its light waxing and waning as the great star pulses and breathes. If you were to watch it patiently, night after night, season after season, you would see it change. A living, restless star, never entirely still, forever slowly shifting its quiet red light. The 14th fact is that Betelgeuse pulses in more than one gentle rhythm at once, its light rising and falling over cycles that overlap and blend together. There is a long, slow swelling that takes something on the order of 6 years to complete, and a shorter beat, closer to a year or so, laid over the top of it. These overlapping tides of brightness are why its changes seem so wandering and irregular, never repeating cleanly. The great star is quite literally breathing, its vast outer layers slowly expanding and contracting. A soft, ponderous heartbeat, far too slow for any single night to reveal, playing out across years and years of patient watching. The 15th fact is that when astronomers spread the light of Betelgeuse into a rainbow to read the story written in its colors, they place it in the class of stars they label with the letter M, the coolest and reddest of the ordinary spectral types. Woven through that rainbow are dark lines and bands, the fingerprints of molecules that can only survive in a relatively cool star, things like titanium oxide, which would be torn apart in a hotter sun. Their very presence tells us how gentle the surface of Betelgeuse truly is, cool enough for such delicate molecules to form and endure, high in the outer air of a dying giant. The 16th fact is that for all the coolness of its surface, Betelgeuse pours out an astonishing flood of light, shining with something like 100,000 times the brightness of our sun. And a great deal of that light is of a kind our eyes cannot even see, a deep infrared glow, the warm, invisible radiance of a cool and enormous star. If our eyes could perceive that hidden warmth, Betelgeuse would blaze in the sky far brighter than it already does. It is a giant lamp glowing mostly in a light beyond our seeing, vast and radiant, and quietly outshining 100,000 suns from its place upon the hunter's shoulder. The 17th fact is that Betelgeuse is slowly shedding itself into space, breathing out a steady stream of its own substance in what astronomers call a stellar wind. From its swollen, restless surface, great quantities of gas drift gently outward, carrying away a measurable fraction of the star with every passing age. Over the ages, it has already lost a considerable amount of its original mass in this way, sighing it softly into the surrounding dark. The star is, in a very real sense, gradually giving itself away, exhaling its outer layers into the cold, wrapping itself in a widening veil of the very material it was born with. The 18th fact is that all this slow exhaling has wrapped Betelgeuse in great, faint shells and clouds of its own cast-off material, spreading far out around the star. When we look at it with instruments sensitive to that hidden warmth, we find the little red point surrounded by vast, ghostly halos of gas and dust, reaching outward for distances many, many times the width of the star itself. These are the exhaled breaths of ages past, drifting slowly away into space. The star sits at the heart of its own soft nebula, a dying giant nested gently within the widening clouds of everything it has already let go. The 19th fact is that Betelgeuse holds a rare and special honor, for it is one of the very few stars beyond our sun whose actual surface we have ever managed to see as more than a single point of light. Because it is both so enormous and so relatively near, our finest telescopes have been able to capture faint, blurred images of its disk, revealing not just a dot but a small, mottled, glowing face. On almost every other star in the whole sky, even the greatest instruments show only a point, but on Betelgeuse, gently, we can begin to make out the surface itself, the living face of a distant, dying sun. The 20th fact is that there is something quietly moving in the thought that this one red star, among the countless thousands scattered across the night, has a face we can almost see and a fate we can almost read. For thousands of years, people in every land have looked up at Betelgeuse without ever knowing what it was, only that it glowed warm and red upon the hunter's shoulder. And now, at last, we understand it a little, this ancient, swollen, gently dying giant. As you lie here in the dark, you might picture it, high and calm above the winter world. An old red star, breathing slowly, keeping its patient watch over the sleeping earth. The 21st fact is that the single most staggering thing about Betelgeuse is its sheer, almost unthinkable size. It is a supergiant in the fullest sense of the word, swollen to somewhere between roughly 700 and 1,000 times the width of our own Sunday. Our sun is already so large that more than 100 Earths would fit across its face, and yet beside Betelgeuse it would be no more than a tiny, glowing speck. To picture the red giant truly, you must let go of every ordinary sense of scale, and imagine a star so vast that our whole bright, familiar sun would vanish within it like a mote of dust in a great cathedral. The 22nd fact is that if we could somehow lift Betelgeuse from its place in Orion and set it down where our sun now sits, at the very center of our solar system, the results would be almost beyond imagining. Its glowing surface would swell outward and swallow the little inner worlds whole, engulfing Mercury and Venus, and our own Earth and Mars, all lost far beneath its vast red surface. Its edge would reach on outward, past the asteroids, toward the mighty orbit of Jupiter itself. Everything we call home would lie deep inside the star, a single dying giant filling the space where an entire family of planets now quietly turns. The 23rd fact is that the true measure of Betelgeuse in ordinary numbers is so large that the numbers themselves begin to lose their meaning. Its radius, the distance from its center to its glowing surface, is something like 600 million kilometers, and by some measures perhaps even more. Light itself, the fastest thing there is, which crosses from our sun to the Earth in about 8 minutes, would need well over an hour simply to travel from the center of Betelgeuse out to its surface. The star is not merely large. It is a thing whose size is measured in the patient hours it takes light to cross it, a giant beyond all common scale. The 24th fact is that if Betelgeuse were hollow, and we tried to fill it with stars the size of our sun, we would need to pour in hundreds of millions of them before it was full. Its volume, the sheer space it occupies, is so vast that our sun is to it as a small marble is to a great ballroom. And yet, for all that immensity, Betelgeuse holds only 15 or 20 times our sun's actual material, spread impossibly thin. The giant is enormous, but also astonishingly rarefied. A great swollen sphere of thin, glowing gas, more like a warm red mist than any solid thing, filling a space that could swallow the sun 100 million times over. The 25th fact is that because Betelgeuse is so enormous and yet holds so little material for its size, it is almost unimaginably tenuous, its outer layers thinner than the very air you are breathing now. In its swollen outer regions, the gas is spread so thinly that it is closer to what we would call a vacuum than to anything solid or dense. If you could somehow pass your hand through the outermost layers of the star, they would seem almost like a faint, warm, glowing fog. The great red giant is far less a solid ball of fire than a vast, soft, luminous cloud, immense beyond measure, and yet gentler and thinner than a morning mist. The 26th fact is that the size of Betelgeuse is not even fixed, for the great star slowly breathes, swelling and shrinking as it pulses through its long, wandering rhythms. Over the years, its glowing surface expands and contracts, its whole vast bulk heaving gently in and out like a slow tide. The changes are small compared to its total size, but they are real, and they carry material outward and let it fall back again in a ceaseless, ponderous rhythm. The giant is never quite still, always trembling faintly at its edges, always shifting, a restless and living thing, forever changing the very measure of how large it truly is. The 27th fact is that to grasp the size of Betelgeuse in gentler, more human terms, imagine trying to fly all the way around it, as we might circle our own small Earth. A journey around the equator of the Earth is a matter of a single day in a fast aircraft. But a journey around the mighty girth of Betelgeuse, at that same speed, would take not a day, and not a year, but many thousands of years, longer than all of recorded human history. You would be born and grow old and die, and so would 100 generations after you. And still the little craft would be droning on, hardly begun on its circle around the star. The 28th fact is that were Betelgeuse to take the sun's place, our Earth would not merely be scorched, but would find itself orbiting deep within the body of the star itself. We circle the sun at a comfortable distance of some 150 million kilometers, and yet the surface of Betelgeuse would lie far, far beyond us, so that our whole orbit would be buried inside the glowing giant. The Earth would trace its yearly path not through empty space, but through the thin, warm outer layers of the star. A small dark world swimming quietly, impossibly, somewhere deep within the red heart of a dying sun. The 29th fact is that Betelgeuse, despite its tremendous distance, appears just barely large enough in our sky for our finest telescopes to make out its shape at all. In the sky it spans an angle so tiny it is like trying to see a small coin resting on the surface of the moon. And yet, because the star is so vast, that impossibly small angle is still just enough for our greatest instruments to catch. It was, in fact, one of the very first stars ever to have its true size measured in this way, more than 100 years ago. A distant point of red gently resolved at last into a disk with a real and measurable width. The 30th fact is that more than a century ago, in the year 1920, Betelgeuse became the very first star beyond our sun to have its diameter directly measured. Astronomers used a clever instrument built upon a great telescope to combine the star's light in a way that revealed the tiny width of its disk. From that delicate measurement, they found that Betelgeuse was truly colossal, hundreds of times wider than the sun, confirming for the first time that such supergiant stars really existed. It was a landmark moment in our understanding of the heavens. The night we first reached out across the dark and gently took the measure of another sun's true size. The 31st fact is that even now, the exact size of Betelgeuse remains a little uncertain, for a strange and gentle reason, that the star has no sharp edge at all. Where does a giant made of thin, glowing gas truly end? Its outer layers simply grow fainter and fainter, fading softly into the surrounding dark, so that different ways of measuring give somewhat different answers. Some find it a little smaller, some a good deal larger, depending on exactly what one counts as its surface. And so the true size of Betelgeuse is not a single fixed number, but a soft and shifting thing, blurred at its edges, as befits so vast and tenuous a giant. The 32nd fact is that part of the difficulty in measuring the size of Betelgeuse comes from the difficulty in knowing exactly how far away it lies. For to turn the tiny angle it spans in our sky into a true width in kilometers, we must first know its distance, and that distance has long been hard to pin down precisely. A star a little farther away must be a little larger to appear the same size, and a star a little nearer a little smaller. And so the two great questions, how far and how large, are gently tangled together. Two mysteries about the same red giant, each one waiting quietly on the answer to the other. The 33rd fact is that among all the stars you can see with your own unaided eyes on a clear night, Betelgeuse is very nearly the largest of them all. There are, out in the wider galaxy, a handful of stars even more monstrous, some so vast they would swallow the orbit of Saturn or beyond, but those are faint and far, hidden from the naked eye. Of the bright stars we can actually see glowing in our sky, none is grander in size than the red giant on Orion's shoulder. When you look up at it, you are gazing at one of the very biggest things a human eye can ever behold, a true titan among the visible stars. The 34th fact is that as enormous as Betelgeuse is, it is not the largest star known to exist, for the cosmos holds a rare few that are grander still. There are hypergiants and extreme supergiants scattered thinly through the galaxy, some of them large enough that, set in the sun's place, their surfaces would reach out beyond even the orbit of Jupiter, toward Saturn and past it. But these are so distant and so uncommon that none of them shines brightly in our sky. Betelgeuse remains our nearest and dearest giant, not the very biggest in all creation, but the greatest that we can easily know and love and watch with our own quiet eyes. The 35th fact is that there is a favorite way of picturing the size of Betelgeuse that begins by shrinking our whole sun down to something we can hold in the mind. Imagine the sun reduced to the size of a single small marble, no wider than the tip of your finger. On that same gentle scale, Betelgeuse would swell to a great globe wider than a tall building, perhaps 40 or 50 meters across. The little marble of a sun would be lost somewhere inside it, a tiny bright fleck within an enormous sphere, a quiet reminder of just how far the red giant has swollen beyond every ordinary, familiar sun. The 36th fact is that Betelgeuse was not always the swollen giant we see today. For in its youth it was a smaller, hotter, blue-white star, blazing fiercely but far more compact. It is only in old age, as it exhausted the fuel in its core, that it began to swell outward, its outer layers billowing to hundreds of times their former size while its surface cooled to that deep and gentle red. This great swelling is the natural fate of a massive star drawing near its end. And so the size of Betelgeuse is itself a sign of its dying. A giant grown vast and cool precisely because its long life is nearly done. The 37th fact is that if Betelgeuse hung as near to us as our own sun, it would utterly dominate the daytime sky, a vast dome of glowing red filling a great swath of the heavens from horizon toward the top of the sky. Instead of a small bright disk, we would see an enormous, softly burning wall of ruby light, spread across an angle wider than dozens of full moons laid side by side. It is only the star's immense distance that shrinks it, in our sky, to a single modest point, a titan folded down by the long miles of empty space into one small, warm, red spark upon the shoulder of the hunter. The 38th fact is that the glowing surface of Betelgeuse is so vast that its area beggars all comparison. Spread out flat, the surface of the red giant would cover a space many hundreds of thousands of times greater than the entire surface of our sun. It is from this immense, luminous expanse that the star pours its great flood of light out into the dark. Every part of that surface glows only gently, at the soft temperature of a cool red star, and yet there is simply so much of it that the total light is overwhelming. 100,000 suns worth of glow, rising from a single, unthinkably enormous, gently burning face. The 39th fact is that the size of Betelgeuse is the kind of fact that gently rearranges how we feel about our place in things. We think of the sun as the very emblem of vastness and power, the great lamp that rules our days and warms our world, and beside us it truly is immense. And yet the sun is only one modest star among uncountable billions, and beside Betelgeuse it shrinks to a glowing speck. There is no fear in this, only a soft and spreading wonder, a sense of how much larger and stranger the universe is than the small, warm world we know, and how much room there is out there in the quiet dark. The 40th fact is that when you next find Betelgeuse glowing red in the winter sky, you might hold in your mind the true immensity hidden within that tiny point of light. A star so vast it would swallow all the inner planets whole, so tenuous it is thinner than air, so great that light needs more than an hour just to cross it. All of that, folded down by distance into one small, calm, red spark above the sleeping world. There is a gentle peace in such thoughts, in letting the mind stretch out toward something so enormous and so far, and then letting it drift softly back, down toward the warm and quiet dark of sleep. The 41st fact is that Betelgeuse lies at a truly great distance from us, somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 to 700 light-years away. A light-year is the distance that light travels in a single year, and light is the swiftest thing that exists, crossing the gulf between the Earth and the Sun in only about 8 minutes. To reach Betelgeuse, that same light must journey on for some 6 or 7 centuries. The star is so far that its distance is measured not in miles or kilometers, which would run to numbers beyond all grasping, but in the long, patient years it takes its light to reach us, hundreds upon hundreds of them, drifting quietly across the dark. The 42nd fact is that because its light has taken so many centuries to cross the void, the Betelgeuse you see tonight is not the star as it is now, but the star as it was hundreds of years ago. The soft red light entering your eyes this very evening left the surface of the giant long before you were born, long before your grandparents were born, back in the days of distant history. In a very real sense, when you look at Betelgeuse, you are looking backward in time, gazing at a ghost of light set free from the star centuries ago, only now arriving, gentle and unhurried, at the quiet edge of your eye. The 43rd fact is that this long journey of its light leads to a strange and wonderful thought, for it means that Betelgeuse could, in principle, have already exploded, and we would not yet know. If the great star were to end its life tonight, in a brilliant supernova, the news of that ending would still need 600 or 700 years to reach us across the dark. And so, for all those centuries, we would go on seeing it glowing peacefully, entirely unaware. Most likely it has not yet happened, and will not for a very long time. But there is a soft mystery in knowing that the star we watch is always, gently, a message from the past. The 44th fact is that measuring the distance to a star as far as Betelgeuse is a delicate and difficult art. The usual method relies on watching a star seem to shift, ever so slightly, against the more distant background as the Earth swings from one side of its orbit to the other through the year. But for a star hundreds of light-years away, that shift is maddeningly tiny, and for Betelgeuse it is made harder still by the star's own restless swelling and its blurred, uncertain surface. And so its distance has been refined again and again over the years, each new measurement gently narrowing the answer, though never quite pinning it perfectly still. The 45th fact is that the best modern measurements place Betelgeuse at a distance of roughly 650 light-years, though the true figure may lie anywhere within 100 light-years or so of that. Some careful studies have suggested it is a little nearer, others a little farther, and the honest answer is that we know it only to within a certain gentle range. Even so, the picture is clear enough that the star lies many hundreds of light-years off, deep within our own galaxy, yet still one of the nearer of the great supergiants. It is far, but not unimaginably so. A giant close enough to know, and yet distant enough to keep a little of its mystery. The 46th fact is that despite its great distance, Betelgeuse is actually one of the very nearest of all the red supergiant stars to our own solar system. The galaxy is so vast, and such swollen dying giants so rare, that even 1/600 light-years away counts as a close and precious neighbor. This nearness is a large part of why we can study it so well, why we have measured its size and glimpsed its surface and watched it dim and brighten over the years. Of all the great supergiants in the sky, Betelgeuse is among the closest and clearest to us. our own local example of a star in its final, magnificent age. The 47th fact is that Betelgeuse and our Sun are near neighbors in the grand scheme of the galaxy, both riding within the same broad spiral of stars we call the Milky Way. We share a region of the galaxy sometimes called the Orion Arm, a great sweeping lane of stars and gas in which our Sun is a small and quiet member. Betelgeuse lies farther along in the same general neighborhood, a few hundred light-years off, but by the measure of the whole galaxy, which spans 100,000 light-years, the two of us are practically side by side. Two suns adrift in the same gentle current of the same turning wheel of stars. The 48th fact is that a single light-year, the distance light travels in 1 year, is a span so vast it is nearly impossible to feel. It comes to something like 9.5 trillion kilometers, a 9 followed by 12 zeros, a number that means little to the human heart. And the distance to Betelgeuse is not one such span, but 600 or 700 of them, stacked one upon the next across the dark. To write that distance out in plain kilometers would take a number so long it would run right off the page. And so we mercifully speak instead of light years, and let the gentle word stand in for the unspeakable miles. The 49th fact is that if we were somehow to launch our fastest spacecraft toward Betelgeuse, the journey would be so long that it staggers the imagination. Our swiftest probes travel at speeds that would carry them around the whole Earth in a matter of hours, and yet even they would need many millions of years to cross the gulf to the red giant. Whole species could rise and fall, whole ice ages come and go, and still the little craft would be droning onward through the dark, hardly a fraction of the way there. The distance is not merely far. It is far beyond the reach of any journey we could ever hope to make. The 50th fact is that there is a gentle poetry in the ages of the light we receive from Betelgeuse, the soft red glow reaching your eyes tonight set out from the star centuries ago. In an age long before anyone had ever built a telescope, long before we knew the star for what it truly is. Those ancient photons have crossed the whole dark gulf between us patiently, without pause, only to end their long journey here, now in the quiet of your eye. Every glance at the red giant is a meeting across time. Your gaze, here in the present, gently touching light that began its travels in the deep and distant past. The 51st fact is that the great distance to Betelgeuse is not only a marvel, but a comfort, for it is what keeps us entirely safe from its eventual spectacular death, when the star at last explodes, as one day it surely will. All its violence will be spread and softened across those hundreds of light years of empty space, until, by the time it reaches us, nothing remains but a beautiful light in the sky. We will speak more of this gentle safety later, but it is worth holding now, that the same distance which makes the star a mystery also makes it harmless, a wonder to behold and never a thing to fear. The 52nd fact is that to feel the distance to Betelgeuse, it helps to compare it with the very nearest star to our Sun, a small dim red star called Proxima Centauri. That nearest neighbor lies just over 4 light-years away, close enough that we sometimes dream of one day sending a probe to visit it. Betelgeuse, by contrast, lies more than 150 times farther still. If the nearest star were a single step away from our door, Betelgeuse would be more than 150 steps down a long, dark road. A giant far beyond even our nearest and dearest stellar neighbor. The 53rd fact is that although the stars of Orion seem to hang together in a single flat pattern, they are in truth scattered across enormously different distances, only appearing to form a figure because of the chance direction in which we see them. Some of Orion's stars lie a few hundred light-years off, others many hundreds more, strung out at every depth through the dark. Betelgeuse sits at its own particular distance, quite separate from Rigel and the belt stars, which lie far beyond it. The hunter is not a solid thing at all, but a gentle illusion of nearness, a handful of unrelated suns that only from our own small vantage seem to gather into one striding shape. The 54th fact is that the shape of Orion and the place of Betelgeuse within it are not fixed forever, but drift slowly as the stars wander through the galaxy on their separate paths. Over tens of thousands of years, each star creeps a little across the sky, and the familiar figure of the hunter will gently distort and dissolve. The Orion our distant descendants will see, far in the future, will not be quite the Orion we know tonight. Even the constellations are passing things, beautiful and enduring across all of human history so far, and yet still in the long, slow breath of the cosmos quietly changing. The 55th fact is that Betelgeuse sits close to the great circle of the sky we call the celestial equator, the line directly above the Earth's own equator. And this happy placement means that the red giant can be seen from very nearly everywhere on Earth. Whether you live far in the frozen north or deep in the southern lands, at some season of the year Orion rises for you, and Betelgeuse glows upon his shoulder. It is one of the truly shared stars of humanity, a single red light that has been seen and named and wondered at by peoples of every land, on every continent, beneath the very same sky. The 56th fact is that for all that 600 or 700 light-years sounds impossibly far, it is only the smallest step within our galaxy. The Milky Way stretches something like 100,000 light-years from edge to edge, a great wheel of several 100 billion stars turning slowly in the dark. The distance to Betelgeuse is less than 1/100th of the way even to the galaxy's center. The red giant is, by galactic standards, practically in our own backyard, a near and neighborly star, and yet one whose light still needs centuries to find us, a gentle measure of just how vast our home galaxy truly is. The 57th fact is that for almost all of human history, no one had any way of knowing how far away Betelgeuse truly was. To our ancestors, the stars were simply lights fixed upon the dome of the sky, all seemingly at the same unreachable height. Only in the last century or two have we learned to measure the vast, varying depths at which the stars actually lie. And so the knowledge that Betelgeuse floats some 600 light-years off is a very recent gift, a piece of understanding our great-grandparents' grandparents could scarcely have dreamed of, won by patient watching and gentle, clever reckoning. The 58th fact is that the fact Betelgeuse appears so bright to us, even across 600 light-years of empty space, is a direct sign of just how tremendously luminous it truly is. A more ordinary star at that same great distance would be far too faint for the eye to catch it all, lost among the countless dim points of the Milky Way. That Betelgeuse still ranks among the 10 brightest stars in the sky, despite lying so terribly far, tells us that it is pouring out an almost unimaginable flood of light, a beacon so brilliant that even hundreds of light-years cannot dim it below one of the brightest lamps of night. The 59th fact is that the lingering uncertainty in the distance to Betelgeuse gently clouds many other things we would like to know about it, from its true size to its exact brightness to the details of its coming death. For nearly every property of a star must be reckoned partly from how far away it lies. A small change in the assumed distance ripples outward into a small change in all the rest. And so astronomers continue patiently to refine that one crucial number, knowing that to understand the red giant truly, we must first learn, ever more precisely, just how deep in the dark it floats. The 60th fact is that perhaps the loveliest thing about the great distance to Betelgeuse is the way it binds us gently to the past. The light you see is centuries old, a slow messenger crossing an ocean of dark, carrying the star's image forward through time to meet you, here, tonight. There is no need to feel small before such distances, only cradled by them, held within a cosmos so vast and so patient that its light takes lifetimes to reach us. Let that thought settle softly over you now. The sense of an ancient red star, hundreds of years and hundreds of light years away, quietly keeping you company as you drift towards sleep. The 61st fact is that the deep red color of Betelgeuse is the direct and honest sign of a cool surface. For in the language of stars, color is temperature made visible. The hottest stars glow blue and white, blazing at tens of thousands of degrees, while the coolest smolder in shades of orange and red. Betelgeuse, with its surface at only around 3,000 degrees, glows with that soft, warm, ruddy light. It may seem strange to call 3,000 degrees cool, but among the stars it truly is. For our own sun burns nearly twice as hot and shines a pale yellow-white, while the great red giant glows gently, like a low and dying fire. The 62nd fact is that although the surface of Betelgeuse is cool as stars go, its heart is a place of almost inconceivable heat and violence. For deep within, in the crushed and hidden core, the temperatures soar to many millions of degrees, hot enough to forge the very elements. The coolness we see is only the outermost skin of the star. Its swollen surface spreads so thin and so far from the core that it has had room to cool. And so Betelgeuse holds within itself both extremes at once. A gentle, ruddy face wrapped around a raging, blazing heart, calm without and furious within, like so many quiet-seeming things. The 63rd fact is that the exact place of Betelgeuse among the brightest stars is not fixed, but wanders, precisely because the star's light rises and falls over time. At its brightest, it can climb to become one of the very brightest handful of stars in the whole sky, rivaling the greatest beacons of night. At its dimmest, it slips a little lower down the list, still brilliant but no longer quite so commanding. Most often it settles somewhere around 7th to 10th brightest of all. To rank the stars by brightness is, in the case of Betelgeuse, to try to rank a thing that will not hold still. A beacon that gently breathes its own light in and out. The 64th fact is that within Orion itself, Betelgeuse has a quiet rival in brightness, the brilliant blue-white star Rigel that marks the hunter's foot. For most of the time, cool red Betelgeuse and hot blue Rigel are close enough in brightness that either might, on a given night, be called the brightest star of the constellation. Rigel usually holds the edge, shining steadily, while Betelgeuse rises and falls around it. There is a gentle poetry in the pairing. The cool old red giant and the fierce young blue star, set at opposite corners of the same great figure, forever trading the honor of being Orion's brightest light. The 65th fact is that the particular warmth of Betelgeuse's color adds something precious to the winter sky. A single note of red among a scattering of white and blue. Most of the bright winter stars, Sirius and Rigel and the rest, glow with cool, icy light, so that the red ember of Betelgeuse stands out all the more, warm and gentle against them. It is like a single glowing coal set among cold diamonds. On a crisp, clear winter night, that soft red spark can seem almost to give off warmth, a small comfort in the frozen dark, a distant hearthlight burning quietly upon the shoulder of the striding hunter. The 66th fact is that over its long, wandering cycles, the brightness of Betelgeuse can change quite noticeably, shifting by around a full step or more on the scale astronomers use to measure the light of stars. At its most brilliant, it can nearly double the light it shows at its faintest. These changes unfold slowly, over months and years, far too gradually to notice from one night to the next, but plain enough to anyone who watches patiently across the seasons. The star is a slow performer, its brightening and dimming a long, quiet drama played out over years, rewarding only the most patient and faithful of watchers. The 67th fact is that because Betelgeuse changes so slowly and so visibly, it has long been a favorite of patient watchers of the sky, both professional and amateur alike. For more than a century, Devoted observers around the world have noted its brightness night after night, comparing it carefully to its steady neighbors, building up a long and precious record of its rise and fall. Anyone with clear eyes and a little patience can join in this gentle watch, needing no telescope at all. It is one of the friendliest of all the variable stars, a great dying giant whose slow heartbeat can be followed by anyone willing simply to look up and to keep looking. The 68th fact is that the slow pulsing of Betelgeuse arises from a gentle instability deep in its swollen outer layers, where the great star can no longer hold itself in perfect, unchanging balance. As it nears the end of its life, its outer regions swell and settle in a slow, rhythmic breathing, expanding until they cool and grow dim, then falling back until they warm and brighten once more. It is the natural restlessness of a star grown old and vast. The pulsing is not a sign of trouble, but simply the sound, as it were, of a giant breathing heavily in its final age. A slow, steady rhythm of light in and out across the years. The 69th fact is that as Betelgeuse pulses, not only its brightness but even its color shifts, ever so gently, warming and cooling with the rhythm of its breathing. When the star swells and its surface cools, its light reddens a touch further. When it settles and warms, the red grows a shade less deep. These changes are far too subtle for the eye to catch, but our instruments can read them clearly. And so the star is forever painting itself in slightly different shades of red. A living canvas of warm color, never quite the same from one long season to the next, breathing its hue in and out along with its light. The 70th fact is that there is a gentle old puzzle in the historical records of Betelgeuse, for a few ancient writers seem to describe it in ways that do not quite match the deep red we see today. Some scholars have wondered whether the star might have looked a little different, a little less red, in ages past, though most believe the old descriptions are simply uncertain or poorly translated. It is a small and lovely mystery, the question of whether we and our distant ancestors have truly seen the very same color, a reminder that even a star can seem, across the long centuries, to gently change its face. The 71st fact is that among all the stars astronomers study, Betelgeuse has become something of a touchstone, a nearby example against which our whole understanding of red supergiants is tested and refined. Because it is so close and so bright, we can measure it more thoroughly than almost any other star of its kind, and what we learn from it we apply to the more distant giants we can barely see. In a sense, Betelgeuse teaches us how such stars live and die. It is a patient tutor, a single great red giant, near enough to know intimately, quietly instructing us in the ways of all its far-off kin. The 72nd fact is that most of the light Betelgeuse gives off is of a kind our eyes can never see, a deep and gentle infrared glow, the warm radiance that cool objects give out. If we could open our eyes to that hidden light, Betelgeuse would blaze far brighter than any star in the sky, outshining even brilliant Sirius. The soft red we do see is only a small part of its true output, the visible tip of a great flood of invisible warmth. In the infrared, Betelgeuse is a giant among giants, a beacon glowing mostly in a light forever beyond our sight, quietly warming the dark in ways our eyes will never know. The 73rd fact is that if we could somehow stand at a fixed, equal distance from both our sun and Betelgeuse, the red giant would utterly overwhelm our star, shining tens of thousands of times more brightly. The sun, so overwhelming to us, would become a modest little light beside the vast red lamp of the supergiant. It is only distance, the plain fact that the sun is so near and Betelgeuse so far, that reverses their roles in our sky. Set them side by side, and there would be no contest. The great red giant would flood the scene with light, and our own dear sun would seem a humble candle beside a bonfire. The The 74th fact is that Betelgeuse is one of the faithful few stars bright enough to shine through the glow of our cities, visible even from the hearts of great, light-flooded towns, where fainter stars are drowned entirely by street lamps and windows. The red giant holds its own, a warm point glowing steadily above the rooftops. For countless people who rarely see a truly dark sky, Betelgeuse is one of the few stars they can reliably find, night after night, upon the shoulder of the one constellation nearly everyone can recognize. It is a star of the city as much as of the wilderness, a distant red light, faithful and familiar, glowing gently over the sleepless glow of human places. The 75th fact is that for all its restless pulsing, Betelgeuse is, most of the time, a fairly dependable presence in the sky, changing slowly enough that from year to year it seems much the same. Only the patient watcher, comparing it carefully over long seasons, notices the gentle drift of its light. To the casual eye it is simply there, warm and red and constant, as it has seemed to every generation who has ever looked up. This blend of steadiness and slow change is part of its charm. A star reliable enough to feel like an old friend, yet alive enough, when watched closely, to surprise us with its quiet, breathing light. The 76th fact is that the warm red of Betelgeuse has stirred the human imagination for as long as people have watched the sky, and many cultures wove it into their stories and their names. Its ruddy glow, so unlike the cold white of most stars, invited comparison to fire, to blood, to warmth, to autumn leaves. Different peoples across the world saw in Orion different figures, but the red star at the shoulder was almost always singled out for its color. It is one of the most storied points of light in all the heavens, a small red ember that has kindled human wonder and imagination through every age, in every land, beneath the same shared sky. The 77th fact is that on a cold, clear night, if you watch Betelgeuse low in the sky, you may catch it twinkling and flickering, its red light trembling and even flashing hints of other colors. This is not the star itself, but the restless air of our own atmosphere, bending and scattering its light as it passes down to us. The lower a star sits toward the horizon, the more air its light must cross, and the more it dances. High overhead, Betelgeuse burns steadier and calmer, but near the horizon it shimmers like a distant flame seen across a warm and rippling sea of air. The 78th fact is that to catch even a glimpse of just how faint the light of any star must be by the time it reaches us, consider that Betelgeuse, one of the brightest stars in the sky, delivers to your eye only the very gentlest whisper of light. The flood it pours out, enough to outshine 100,000 suns, is spread so thin across 600 light-years of dark that only the faintest trace survives to reach you. And yet that trace is enough for the eye to catch, and for the heart to wonder at. It is a soft reminder of how sensitive our eyes truly are able to gather, from across the whole vast dark, the last faint breath of a giant's distant fire. The 79th fact is that all this gentle, faithful pulsing of Betelgeuse, its slow rise and fall over months and years, was long regarded as familiar and unremarkable, simply the ordinary breathing of an old red giant. For more than a century, astronomers watched it wax and wane in its wandering rhythm, and nothing about it seemed to hint at surprise. And then, in the last months of one recent year, the star did something it had never quite done before, something that would draw the eyes of the whole world upward. A dimming so deep and so strange that it made headlines around the globe and left even the astronomers wondering. The 80th fact is that there is a quiet beauty in the way Betelgeuse simply glows on, red and warm and slowly breathing, whether or not anyone below is watching. For most of history, no one knew its color came from coolness, or that its light rose and fell, or that its heart raged while its face stayed calm. It simply shone, faithful and red, above the sleeping world. And it shines still, tonight, above you, as gently as ever. Let that steadiness comfort you now. The thought of an ancient red star breathing its slow, warm light out across the dark, keeping its patient watch while you begin, softly, to let go. The 81st fact is that in the closing months of one recent year, and into the early weeks of the next, Betelgeuse did something that astonished everyone who watched the sky, growing dimmer than it had ever been seen to grow before. What began as its ordinary slow fading deepened and deepened, until the star had lost well over half of its usual brightness. Orion's shoulder, once one of the brightest points in the heavens, had faded to a shadow of itself, plainly, visibly dimmer to the naked eye. This great fading, which unfolded through the winter, came to be known as the Great Dimming, one of the most closely watched events in the recent history of the sky. The 82nd fact is that the Great Dimming took place over the late autumn and winter of the year 2019, deepening steadily until it reached its lowest point in the earliest weeks of 2020. For those few months, anyone who knew the winter sky could look up and see that something was different, that the familiar red shoulder of Orion had grown strangely faint. It was the kind of change that unfolds slowly enough to watch night by night, and yet swiftly enough by the patient standards of the stars to feel almost urgent, a great dying giant dimming before our very eyes over the course of a single quiet winter. The 83rd fact is that at the deepest point of the Great Dimming, Betelgeuse had faded to the faintest that anyone had ever recorded in more than a century of careful watching. The long records kept by generations of observers held nothing quite like it. Where the star normally ranked among the 10 brightest in the sky, it had now slipped well down the list, plainly diminished. To seasoned stargazers, Orion looked wrong, lopsided, its bright shoulder gone dim. It was a genuinely historic low, the faintest that this great and faithful star had been seen to be in all the long span of modern astronomy, a fading without precedent in living memory. The 84th fact is that what made the Great Dimming so remarkable was that it needed no telescope, no instrument at all, to be seen, for the change was plain to any patient naked eye. Ordinary people, glancing up at Orion on a winter evening, could see for themselves that its red shoulder had grown faint. This was not some subtle shift buried in the data of scientists, but a visible change in one of the most familiar patterns in the whole sky. For a few strange months, the constellation everyone knew had quietly transformed. Its brightest warm ember dimmed to a soft and shadowed glow, there for anyone to notice who cared to look. The 85th fact is that as Betelgeuse dimmed and dimmed, a thrilling and slightly nervous question began to spread among those who watched. Could this be the beginning of the end, the first sign that the great star was about to explode? For Betelgeuse is known to be near its death, and a supernova can be preceded by strange behavior. Might this deep, unprecedented dimming be its final act before the great blast? The thought electrified astronomers and the wider world alike. Telescopes turned toward it eagerly, waiting, watching the fading red giant with a mixture of hope and wonder, half expecting the sky to blaze. The 86th fact is that the great dimming of Betelgeuse became something rare in modern times, a genuine piece of astronomy that captured the attention of the whole world. News of the fading star spread far beyond the circles of scientists, appearing in newspapers and on screens around the globe. People who had never given the night sky a second thought suddenly found themselves looking up at Orion, wondering about the strange red star that might be about to die. For a little while, a distant dying giant, 600 light-years away, was on the minds of millions, a quiet reminder of how deeply the drama of the heavens can still touch the human heart. The 87th fact is that in the end, Betelgeuse did not explode, but instead, in the spring of that year, it quietly began to brighten once more, climbing steadily back toward its usual glow. The great dimming had reached its lowest point, and then gently reversed itself. Over the following months, the red giant returned to its familiar brightness, taking its old place among the brightest stars of the sky as though nothing had happened. The great blast the world had half awaited did not come. The star had not died. It had only, it seemed, passed through some strange and passing shadow, and then emerged whole and glowing back into the light. The 88th fact is that although the great dimming turned out not to be the star's death after all, it was very far from a disappointment, for it gave astronomers a rare and precious gift. Never before had they been able to watch a nearby supergiant undergo so dramatic and mysterious a change, with all our modern instruments trained upon it. The dimming became one of the most thoroughly studied events in the recent history of stellar astronomy, teaching us a great deal about how these giants behave. What might have seemed a false alarm was, in truth, a golden opportunity. A chance to watch a dying star do something genuinely new, and to try, at last, to understand it. The 89th fact is that the moment Betelgeuse began to recover, a great question remained, one that would occupy astronomers for a long while afterward. Simply this: what had caused the great dimming in the first place? If it was not the prelude to a supernova, then what had made the star fade so deeply and so strangely? Several possibilities were weighed and tested against the careful observations gathered during those months. The answer, when it came into focus, would prove to be a beautiful and subtle tale. A story not of destruction, but of dust, and of the restless, patchy surface of the great red star itself. The 90th fact is that one of the most important clues came from the rare images of the star's own disk taken during the dimming, which revealed something startling, that Betelgeuse was not fading evenly all over, but growing dark especially across its lower, southern half. One whole region of the great star's face had dimmed far more than the rest, as though a shadow had fallen across part of it. This lopsided darkening was a vital hint. Whatever had caused the great dimming was not a simple, uniform fading of the whole star, but something localized, something that had thrown one broad portion of that vast red face into shadow. The 91st fact is that as astronomers pieced the clues together, two gentle explanations rose to the fore, and it seemed likely that both had played their part. The first was a great cloud of dust, cast off by the star itself, drifting between us and its surface and veiling part of its light. The second was a cool patch upon the star's own face, a region of its restless surface that had grown temporarily colder and therefore dimmer. Neither alone told the whole story, but together they fit the observations beautifully. The great dimming, it seemed, was the work of two things at once: a passing veil of dust, and a cooling of the giant's own troubled skin. The 92nd fact is that the great dimming appears to have followed naturally from the ordinary restlessness of Betelgeuse, its normal pulsing and its steady shedding of material, all coming together in one unusual moment. The star was already in one of the dimmer phases of its slow pulsing rhythm, and it seems that a great gust of gas, breathed out from its surface, cooled as it drifted away and condensed into a cloud of dust just in our line of sight. Chance and the star's own nature conspired. What looked at first like something wholly new was, in the end, the familiar workings of the giant, simply caught, for once, in a rare and dramatic alignment. The 93rd fact is that while the great dimming was the deepest fading ever recorded for Betelgeuse, the star had always dimmed and brightened to lesser degrees, and has continued its restless behavior since. In the years that followed the great event, astronomers noticed that the star's usual rhythms seemed a little disturbed, as though it were still settling after some deep disruption. Betelgeuse remains a lively and unpredictable giant, forever surprising those who watch it. The Great Dimming was the most spectacular of its moods, but not the only one. Simply the deepest and strangest chapter, so far, in the long, ongoing story of a restless dying star. The 94th fact is that during the Great Dimming, astronomers achieved something truly remarkable, capturing detailed images of the changing face of Betelgeuse as it faded, watching a distant star's surface transform almost in real time. These pictures, taken with some of the greatest telescopes on Earth, showed the star's disk visibly darkening across one region, and then slowly brightening again as the months passed. To watch the surface of another sun change before our eyes is a rare privilege indeed. It was as though Betelgeuse had allowed us, for a little while, to see it breathe and shift and stir. A living, changing face, 600 light-years away, caught gently in our lenses. The 95th fact is that the Great Dimming was a humbling reminder of how much remains mysterious even about a star we have studied so closely for so long. Betelgeuse had behaved in a way no one had quite predicted, and it took months of careful work to begin to understand it. If a nearby giant, watched for over a century, can still surprise us so, then the wider universe surely holds countless wonders we have not begun to imagine. There is a gentle humility in that thought, and a gentle excitement too. The knowledge that even our nearest and most familiar stars can still astonish us, and that the cosmos keeps its secrets well. The 96th fact is that perhaps the sweetest legacy of the Great Dimming was the way it drew so many ordinary people to look up and wonder. For a few winter months, folk who had never thought much about the stars found themselves stepping outside on cold evenings, searching out Orion, and gazing at the strange faded red giant on his shoulder. The event became a shared moment of curiosity across the whole world. In dimming, Betelgeuse gave a great gift. It reminded a distracted, busy world to lift its eyes and to remember the quiet, ancient dramas that unfold, always, in the dark above our heads. The 97th fact is that for those few months of the Great Dimming, the familiar figure of Orion looked genuinely altered, its bright red shoulder so faded that the whole constellation seemed subtly out of balance. Long-time watchers of the sky found the sight faintly unsettling, as though a well-known face had changed expression. It was a rare chance to see, in a small way, what Orion might look like after Betelgeuse is finally gone. When the star recovered and brightened once more, the hunter was made whole again. But for a little while we had glimpsed a future Orion, dimmed and altered, a gentle preview of an ending still to come. The 98th fact is that ever since the Great Dimming, astronomers have kept an especially watchful eye on Betelgeuse, alert for any further strange behavior in the restless giant. They monitor its brightness, its color, its pulsing rhythms, and the clouds of dust around it, more closely than ever before. Should the star begin to do something truly unusual, we will be watching and ready. In a sense, the Great Dimming turned Betelgeuse into one of the most closely guarded stars in the sky. A giant now under gentle, constant watch, its every mood and flicker noted, in case it should one day, at last, begin its final act. The 99th fact is that it is worth holding gently in mind that the Great Dimming, for all the excitement it stirred, was not a sign that Betelgeuse is about to explode anytime soon. The two things, its dimming and its eventual death, appear to be quite separate. The fading was the work of dust and cool patches, the ordinary restlessness of an old giant, and not the first tremor of a supernova. Betelgeuse may yet shine on, dimming and brightening in its wandering way, for many thousands of years to come. There is no urgency in it, and nothing to fear, only a slow, beautiful drama, unfolding in its own unhurried time. The 100th fact is that the story of the Great Dimming is, in the end, a gentle one. A tale of a great star doing something mysterious and beautiful, and of a whole world pausing to watch and wonder. It reminds us that the sky is not a fixed and finished thing, but alive and changing, full of quiet dramas that reward the patient eye. And it reminds us, too, that even the strangest of these changes need not frighten us, but can simply fill us with awe. Let that awe settle softly over you now, here in the dark. The memory of a distant red giant that dimmed one winter, and then gently glowed again. The 101st fact is that the leading explanation for the Great Dimming begins with dust, that most humble of things, gathered into a great cloud that the star itself had breathed out into space. Betelgeuse, like all red supergiants, is constantly shedding material from its surface, sighing gas gently outward. It seems that in the months before the dimming, the star exhaled an especially large gust of this gas, which then drifted away, cooled, and gathered itself into a cloud of fine dust. And that cloud, hanging by chance directly between us and the star, veiled part of its light, a curtain of the star's own making, drawn softly across its face. The 102nd fact is that the dust responsible for the dimming formed in a way both simple and beautiful, as hot gas breathed out from the star drifted away and slowly cooled in the cold of space. As that gas cooled, some of the elements within it, things like silicon and oxygen and other common stuff, began to clump together into tiny solid grains, much as steam cools and condenses into droplets of mist. These grains, each far smaller than a speck of household dust, gathered in their countless billions into a great, dim cloud. It is a gentle kind of alchemy, the warm breath of a star cooling in the dark, quietly turning itself into a veil of fine, floating dust. The 103rd fact is that a cloud of such dust, though made of the tiniest of grains, can dim the light of even a mighty star, for each little grain scatters and absorbs a small share of the light that tries to pass through it. Gather enough of them together in a great drifting cloud, and their combined effect can cast a real and visible shadow. This is much the same as the way a thin veil of smoke or haze can dim the sun here on Earth, softening and reddening its light. The dust before Betelgeuse worked in just this way. A vast, faint screen of countless grains, each doing its small part to gently veil the giant's glow. The 104th fact is that the great dust cloud seems to have hung especially before the lower, southern part of Betelgeuse, which is exactly the region that the images showed darkening the most. This fit the picture beautifully, for it explained why the star faded so unevenly, one broad portion of its face falling deep into shadow while the rest remained brighter. The dust had drawn its curtain across only part of the giant. It was a satisfying match between what we saw and what we suspected, the darkened region of the star's disk lining up neatly with the veil of dust that the giant had breathed across its own southern face. The 105th fact is that the second part of the explanation lies not in front of the star, but upon its very surface, in the great churning patterns that astronomers call convection. The surface of Betelgeuse is not smooth and uniform, but boils and roils like a pot of simmering liquid, with vast cells of hot gas rising up from below, cooling at the top and sinking back down again. These convection cells are enormous, each one large enough to swallow whole planetary orbits. And it seems that around the time of the dimming, one great region of the surface had cooled, a huge temporary cold patch upon the churning face of the star, glowing more dimly than the rest. The 106th fact is that the convection cells upon Betelgeuse are almost beyond imagining in their size, for on so vast a star, Even a single rising bubble of gas can be larger than the entire orbit of the Earth around the Sun, where our own Sun's surface is covered in countless small, fine granules. The surface of Betelgeuse seethes with just a few gigantic cells, each a slow, colossal upwelling of glowing gas. These great cells rise and fall over months and years, forever reshaping the star's mottled face. It is a surface of tremendous, ponderous motion, a handful of vast, slow, boiling cells, each one a churning region wider than the path our whole world travels in a year. The 107th fact is that when one of these great convection cells cools, the region it covers grows dimmer. For a cooler patch of a star's surface simply gives off less light than a hotter one, and so, if a large enough area of Betelgeuse's face were to cool at the same time, the whole star would appear to fade. During the Great Dimming, it seems that just such a cooling took place across one broad region, deepening the fade begun by the dust. The star's own restless, boiling surface had turned temporarily cold in one great patch, a vast, dim, cooling bruise upon the giant's face, adding its shadow to the veil of drifting dust. The 108th fact is that when astronomers put the two explanations together, the dust cloud and the cool surface patch, the whole strange event of the Great Dimming fell beautifully into place. It seems that a cool region on the star's surface had breathed out a great gust of gas, and that this gas, drifting away from the cooler and therefore calmer region, condensed all the more readily into dust. The cool patch and the dust cloud were thus not two separate accidents, but two parts of a single connected story. The star had, in a sense, cooled, exhaled, and then veiled itself, one gentle chain of events, dimming the giant across a single remarkable winter. The 109th fact is that the true cause of the Great Dimming was uncovered only through the patient work of many observatories around the world and in space, each contributing a piece of the puzzle. Some instruments measured the star's changing brightness, others captured images of its darkening face, and still others studied the light in ways that revealed the presence and nature of the dust. No single telescope could have told the whole story. It took a great gathering of eyes, on the ground and above the atmosphere, to piece the answer together. A quiet, worldwide collaboration, all trained upon one dimming red star, slowly reading the secret of its fading. The 110th fact is that in the months and years after the Great Dimming, further observations helped confirm the presence of the cast-off dust, tracing the great cloud as it drifted slowly away from the star and thinned into the surrounding dark. Astronomers could follow the veil dispersing, its grains spreading outward and its shadow lifting, which is precisely why the star brightened again. The dust that had dimmed the giant did not vanish, but simply drifted on, joining the wider clouds of material that Betelgeuse has shed over the ages. One more breath of the star, released into space, adding its small part to the growing veil that surrounds the dying giant. The 111th fact is that the dust that dimmed Betelgeuse is part of something far grander than any single event. For it is precisely in this way that dying stars enrich the whole galaxy with the raw material of new worlds. The grains breathed out by red supergiants drift through space and mingle with the great clouds between the stars. And from such clouds, in time, new stars and planets are born. The very dust that veiled Betelgeuse is kin to the dust from which our own Earth was once made. In shedding itself, the giant is quietly sowing the future, scattering the seeds of worlds not yet born into the patient dark. The 112th fact is that the great cool patches and boiling cells upon the surface of Betelgeuse are not signs of trouble, but simply the ordinary, restless nature of a red supergiant. All such stars have surfaces that churn and roil in this way, forever rising and sinking, warming and cooling, reshaping themselves in slow and mighty motions. Betelgeuse is simply near enough for us to glimpse this churning directly, where on more distant giants it is hidden. The star's mottled, ever-changing face is entirely healthy. The natural look of an old giant, its vast surface breathing and boiling gently, as such stars have always done and always will. The 113th fact is that the great boiling of Betelgeuse's surface serves a vital purpose, for it is how the star carries the heat generated deep in its core outward to its surface, where it can escape as light. In the swollen outer layers of a red supergiant, this churning motion of rising hot gas and sinking cool gas is the most efficient way to move that immense energy along. The convection cells are, in effect, great conveyor belts of heat, forever lifting warmth up from the depths. The restless surface we see is not idle at all. It is the star at work, patiently ferrying the fire of its core up into the light of day. The 114th fact is that Betelgeuse has almost certainly breathed out many such clouds of dust over its long life, of which the one that caused the great dimming is simply the one we happen to catch in the act. Around the star, our instruments reveal shells and streamers of older material, the fossil breaths of ages past, drifting slowly outward. The great dimming cloud was only the newest of these, and only remarkable because it fell so squarely across our line of sight. The giant is forever exhaling into space, and now and then, by chance, one of its breaths drifts just so, and dims it before our watching eyes. The 115th fact is that the steady shedding of dust and gas is slowly stripping Betelgeuse of its outer layers, and over the long ages this gentle loss will help shape how the star finally dies, a red supergiant size away a great deal of material before its end, thinning its outer envelope even as its core races toward collapse. The dust of the great dimming was one small installment of this long, slow undressing. Bit by bit, breath by breath, the giant is laying itself bare, preparing, in its own unhurried way, for the tremendous transformation that awaits it at the very end of its life. The 116th fact is that thanks to the great dimming and all the study it inspired, we now understand the restless surfaces and dusty breaths of red supergiants far better than we did before. What began as a mystery has become a window, teaching us how these giants shed their material, how they form their dust, and how their boiling surfaces can make them seem to fade. Betelgeuse, in dimming, taught us a great deal not only about itself but about all the stars of its kind. Its passing shadow left behind a lasting light of understanding, a gift of knowledge, breathed quietly to us across 600 light-years of dark. The 117th fact is that everything we learned from the great dimming points gently to the same reassuring conclusion, that the fading was an entirely natural event, and not the herald of any imminent catastrophe. Dust and cool patches are the ordinary business of an aging supergiant, nothing more. The star has done this sort of thing before in lesser ways and will do it again. There is no cause for alarm in any of it, only for wonder. Betelgeuse is simply living out its old age as such stars do, breathing, boiling, dimming, and brightening, in the slow and stately rhythms of a giant near, but not yet at, its end. The 118th fact is that we should count ourselves quietly fortunate to live in a time when we could watch the great dimming unfold and come to understand it, for such a chance is rare indeed. Never before in human history had we the instruments to see a distant star's surface darken and recover, to trace its breath of dust, to read the whole story as it happened. Generations of stargazers before us watched Betelgeuse without ever knowing what its fadings truly meant. We are the first who could look and see and understand, a small privilege of our age, to have witnessed a giant's shadow and learned, at last, its gentle cause. The 119th fact is that Betelgeuse remains, to this day, a restless and closely watched giant, its surface still boiling, its breath still forming dust, its light still gently rising and falling in its wandering rhythms. The Great Dimming was one dramatic chapter, but the story continues, night after night, as astronomers and amateurs alike keep their patient watch. The star may dim again, deeply or shallowly, in years to come, and we will be watching when it does. It is a living thing, never finished, never entirely still. An old red giant forever stirring, quietly writing the next lines of its long, slow tale. The 120th fact is that there is a deep gentleness in the true explanation of the Great Dimming. For it was, in the end, only dust and cooling, only a great star breathing and boiling as it always has. What the world half feared was a violent ending turned out to be the quietest of things. A veil of fine dust and a cool patch upon a churning face. There is a lesson in that, perhaps, for the anxious heart, that what looks alarming from afar is often, up close, only nature going gently about its ancient work. Let that quiet truth soothe you now, and let the thought of a giant's soft breath of dust carry you a little further towards sleep. The 121st fact is that for all its gentle glowing, Betelgeuse is a doomed star, drawing steadily and certainly toward a spectacular end. It has already lived nearly the whole of its brief, brilliant life, burning through its fuel at a furious pace, and now it stands near the very edge of its existence. One day, and by cosmic reckoning that day is not far off, the great red giant will explode in a titanic blast we call a supernova. This is not a possibility, but a certainty, written into the star by its very mass. Betelgeuse is living out its final age. An old giant, magnificent and swollen, quietly awaiting a tremendous and inevitable end. The 122nd fact is that to understand why Betelgeuse is doomed, we must understand how a star shines at all. For every star lives by burning fuel in its core, fusing light elements into heavier ones and releasing energy in the process. Deep within, hydrogen is fused into helium, and that outpouring of energy pushes outward, holding the star up against the crushing inward pull of its own gravity. So long as the fuel lasts, the star endures, balanced between the fire within and the weight without. But no store of fuel is endless, and when at last it runs low, that long, steady balance must finally and dramatically break. The 123rd fact is that Betelgeuse has long since exhausted the simple hydrogen fuel of its youth, and now, in its old age, it burns heavier and heavier elements in a desperate effort to hold itself up. Having fused its hydrogen into helium, it went on to fuse that helium into carbon and oxygen, and it works its way, stage by stage, through ever heavier fuels. Each new stage burns faster and yields less energy than the last, like a fire forced to feed on ever poorer wood. The star is running through the final chapters of its life, climbing a ladder of elements toward an end that grows nearer with every rung it burns. The 124th fact is that this climb through heavier and heavier elements has a fixed and fatal end, for it stops at iron, the element that marks the limit of a star's power to sustain itself. When a massive star's core has been fused all the way to iron, it can go no further, because fusing iron does not release energy, but instead consumes it. At that moment, the star loses the very fire that has held it up, and nothing remains to resist the inward crush of gravity. The building of iron in the core is the beginning of the end, the last quiet step before a massive star's sudden and catastrophic collapse. The 125th fact is that when Betelgeuse at last builds up a core of iron and can burn no more, its center will collapse with unimaginable speed and violence, in a fraction of a single second, no longer held up by the outward push of fusion. The core will fall inward upon itself, crushed by its own tremendous gravity, until it is compressed almost beyond belief. This sudden collapse of the heart of the star is the trigger for everything that follows. In the span of a heartbeat, a core wider than the Earth will be crushed down to a tiny, impossibly dense ball. And from that violent implosion, a great explosion will be born. The 126th fact is that from the violent collapse of its core, Betelgeuse will unleash a supernova, one of the mightiest explosions in all the cosmos. As the core is crushed to its limit, it rebounds and sends a colossal shock wave tearing outward through the star, while a vast flood of tiny particles called neutrinos pours out from the collapsing center. Together these blast the entire outer body of the star apart, hurling its layers into space at a fair fraction of the speed of light. In a single instant, the great red giant will be torn asunder, its long, slow life ending in a burst of light bright enough to rival a whole galaxy. The 127th fact is that the kind of explosion awaiting Betelgeuse is what astronomers call a core collapse supernova, sometimes labeled a Type 2. It is the natural death of a truly massive star, quite different from other kinds of stellar explosion. It comes not from any outside cause, but from the star's own collapse under its own weight, once its fuel is spent. Every massive star is destined for such an end, and Betelgeuse, at 15 or 20 times the mass of our Sun, sits firmly among their number. Its death is written in its birth, a great mass born only to burn fast, and to end one day in the tremendous fire of a core collapse supernova. The 128th fact is that the great question everyone asks is when will Betelgeuse explode? And the honest answer is that it will happen sometime within roughly the next 100,000 years. That may sound like a long time, and by the measure of a human life it is unthinkably long. But by the measure of a star it is the merest instant, the very last breath. On the vast clock of the cosmos, Betelgeuse is poised at the final second before midnight. It could explode 100,000 years from now, or 1,000, or, though it is very unlikely, tonight. But explode it surely will, and soon as the stars reckon time. The 129th fact is that we cannot say precisely when Betelgeuse will die, because we cannot see directly into its hidden core, where the final stages of its life are playing out. From the outside, a star in its last few thousand years looks much like a star with far longer to live. The telltale signs are buried deep within, beyond our sight. And so we can only say that the star is near its end, within that final window of 100,000 years, without knowing where in that window we now stand. It is a gentle uncertainty, a great giant, plainly near death, yet keeping the exact hour of its ending as its own quiet secret. The 130th fact is that because its light takes some 600 years to reach us, there is a strange possibility we can never quite dismiss, that Betelgeuse may have already exploded, and the news is simply still on its way. If the star had died 600 years ago, we would only now be about to see it. Most likely this is not the case, for the odds of catching it in just these few centuries are small, but the thought remains wonderful and strange. The Betelgeuse we watch tonight is a picture 6 centuries old, and somewhere in the dark between us, its final light, whenever it comes, is perhaps already quietly traveling our way. The 131st fact is that when Betelgeuse finally does collapse, there may be very little warning that we can see beforehand, for the fatal changes happen deep in the core, hidden from view. The star might give some subtle hints in its final years, changes in its pulsing or its output that we would only recognize in hindsight, but there may be no clear, unmistakable sign until the explosion itself. One night the star may simply, suddenly, begin to blaze. There is a certain drama in that thought, that the great event, whenever it comes, may arrive almost without notice, transforming the quiet red shoulder of Orion in the space of a single evening. The 132nd fact is that there is, However, one faint and wonderful warning we might receive in the very moments before Betelgeuse blazes into view, a silent whisper of tiny particles called neutrinos. When the core collapses, it releases an immense burst of these ghostly particles, which stream outward and reach us slightly before the light of the explosion itself. Our detectors, buried deep underground, might catch that whisper first, giving astronomers a few precious hours of warning before the sky brightens. It would be a message from the star's own dying heart, arriving quietly, ahead of the light, to tell us that the great red giant had, at last, begun to fall. The 133rd fact is that some studies of Betelgeuse's pulsing and its inner structure have tried to guess how far along it is in its final stages. With a range of gentle and uncertain answers, a few have suggested it may be nearer its end than once thought, perhaps only some thousands or tens of thousands of years away, while others hold to the longer view. The truth is that all such estimates carry great uncertainty, for we are peering at hidden things from far away. What all agree upon is simply this: that by the standards of the stars, the end is close and drawing slowly and surely ever closer. The 134th fact is that of all the stars in the sky, Betelgeuse is among the very best candidates to become the next great supernova visible to the naked eye from Earth. It is massive, near the end of its life, and close enough that when it explodes, the whole world will see it plainly. The last supernova seen bright in our skies without a telescope was more than 4 centuries ago, long before such instruments existed. To witness one again, up close, would be a wonder granted to no living human yet. And Betelgeuse is our likeliest herald of that day, the star most poised, of all we can see, to fill our sky with sudden historic light. The 135th fact is that the death of Betelgeuse will be an act of creation as much as destruction. For in the searing heat of its explosion, elements heavier than iron will be forged and scattered into space. Gold and silver, and many another precious substance are born in the fury of such supernovae, made in moments and flung outward across the galaxy. The dying giant will seed the surrounding dark with the raw material of future worlds and future life. Its death will not be an ending only, but a great sowing, a scattering of new-made elements into the cosmos, from which, in ages to come, new stars and planets may one day rise. The 136th fact is that the supernova that awaits Betelgeuse is the very same kind of event that, long ago, helped make the world you live in and the body you rest in tonight. For nearly every atom heavier than the lightest few was forged in the hearts and the death throes of stars, and scattered by explosions much like the one to come. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all were born in dying stars and cast into space. When Betelgeuse explodes, it will do again what other stars once did for us. A great giving back of itself, sowing the stuff of life across the patient dark. The 137th fact is that there is nothing tragic in the coming death of Betelgeuse, for it is simply the natural and fitting end of a great star's life, as certain and as proper as the falling of autumn leaves. The star was born massive, and a massive star's destiny is to burn brightly, live briefly, and end in glory. Betelgeuse will not fade quietly into nothing, but will blaze forth in one of the most magnificent events the universe allows. Its death is the crowning act of its existence, not a loss to be mourned, but a transformation to be marveled at, the last and greatest gift of a giant to the sky. The 138th fact is that in all likelihood, Betelgeuse will not explode within any of our lifetimes, nor perhaps within many thousands of years, and there is a gentle peace in that thought. We watch a star poised at the edge of a great change, and yet that change may not come for longer than all of human history so far. We are simply privileged to know it is coming, to hold the knowledge of a wonder that our distant descendants may one day behold. There is no need to wait anxiously, only to look up at the red giant now and then, and to marvel quietly that we know its magnificent fate. The 139th fact is that there remains, always, the small and thrilling chance that we or our children might be the ones to witness the death of Betelgeuse. For though the odds in any given lifetime are slim, the star truly could explode at any time, tonight or next year or 1,000 years hence. Somewhere out there, its final light may already be crossing the dark toward us. To be alive on the night that Orion's shoulder blazes into a supernova would be to witness one of the great events of all human history. And it is a wonder that could, however unlikely, belong to any of us who simply keep looking up. The 140th fact is that when you look up now at Betelgeuse, glowing calm and red upon the hunter's shoulder, you may hold gently in your mind the magnificent end that awaits it, still to come, in its own unhurried time. There is no fear in it, only wonder, the knowledge that this ancient giant is living out its final age, and will one day give itself to the sky in a blaze of glory and creation. And until that distant night, it simply shines on, patient and warm, as it has for all of human history. A doomed and beautiful star, keeping its quiet watch above you as you drift, softly, towards sleep. The 141st fact is that when Betelgeuse finally explodes, the sight from Earth will be one of the most spectacular things any human being has ever beheld. In the space of days, the calm red shoulder of Orion will brighten and brighten until it blazes as one of the most brilliant objects in the entire sky, far outshining every other star. Where once there was a warm red point, there will be a dazzling beacon, so bright it will command the whole heavens. It will be a sight to stop the breath and lift the heart. The death of a giant, written in sudden, overwhelming light across the familiar face of the winter sky. The 142nd fact is that at the height of its glory, the supernova of Betelgeuse is expected to shine about as brightly as the half-moon, gathered into a single, dazzling point of light. Imagine all the soft glow of a half-lit moon, concentrated not across a broad disk but into one piercing spark, and you begin to grasp how brilliant it will be. It will far outshine Venus, far outshine every star, second in the sky only to the sun and the full moon themselves. A single point of light, blazing with the strength of half a moon, hanging upon the shoulder of Orion, unlike anything the living sky has ever shown. The 143rd fact is that so brilliant will the supernova be that it will be plainly visible even in broad daylight, a star shining boldly in the blue sky of noon. For weeks, perhaps months, people will be able to step outside in the middle of the day and see the dying giant burning there. A point of light bright enough to hold its own against the glare of the sunlit sky. This alone would make it one of the most extraordinary sights in the history of human skywatching. A star visible by day, defying the sunlight itself. A wonder that no person now alive has ever seen, blazing openly above the ordinary, waking world. The 144th fact is that at night, the supernova will be brilliant enough to cast faint shadows upon the ground. Just as the moon does, people walking beneath a clear night sky will see their own dim shadows thrown by the light of a single dying star, 600 light-years away. Trees and rooftops will cast soft shadows in its glow. It is a strange and beautiful thought that the death of a distant giant could light the sleeping earth so gently, so palpably, that we might read by it or walk by it, or watch our shadows shift beneath it. A second, ghostly moonlight, born from the fire of an exploding star. The 145th fact is that the great brilliance of the supernova will not last forever, but will unfold slowly over weeks and months, rising to a dazzling peak and then, ever so gradually fading away. For several weeks it will blaze at its brightest, visible even by day, and then across the following months it will slowly dim, still bright at night, gently returning the sky toward its old familiar state. All told, the spectacle may endure in one form or another for a year or more. It will be no fleeting flash, but a long, slow, majestic performance. A dying star holding the whole world's gaze for months on end before it finally fades. The 146th fact is that because Betelgeuse is so near, its supernova will very likely be the brightest such explosion ever witnessed in all of recorded human history. The great supernovae of the past, noted by astronomers of long ago centuries, were far more distant and dimmer in our skies. Betelgeuse, at only 600 light-years, is practically a neighbor by comparison. When it dies, it may well outshine every stellar explosion our ancestors ever recorded. It will be a landmark not only in the sky but in the whole story of humanity's watching of the heavens, the greatest and closest star death that our kind has ever had the fortune to behold. The 147th fact is that during the months of the supernova, the very look of the winter sky will be transformed, for Orion will bear at his shoulder a blazing jewel brighter than anything else in the heavens. The familiar figure of the hunter, known to every generation, will be dramatically altered, dominated by that single dazzling point. Every person on Earth with clear skies will be able to look up and see it, and to know that a star is dying there. For a little while, the whole world will share one sky and one wonder, Orion made strange and magnificent, crowned with the brilliant, fading light of a giant's end. The 148th fact is that the supernova will likely shine with a brilliant white or bluish-white light, quite different from the soft red of the star we know today. The tremendous energy of the explosion, far hotter than the calm surface of the old red giant, will pour out light of a fiercer, cooler-toned color, and so the warm red ember of Orion's shoulder will, for a time, become a dazzling white beacon, before slowly reddening again as it fades over the months. The star will change its very color in death, blazing suddenly white-hot where once it glowed gently red, a final, brilliant transformation before the long, slow dimming toward the end. The 149th fact is that when Betelgeuse explodes, it will become, in an instant, the most intensely studied object in the entire sky, every telescope on Earth and in space turning eagerly toward it. A nearby supernova is a once-in-many-generations gift to science, a chance to watch up close the death of a massive star and the birth of whatever it leaves behind. Astronomers would learn more in those weeks than in decades of ordinary study. The event would be a scientific treasure beyond price, and for a little while, the eyes of all the world's observatories and all the world's people would be fixed upon one dying star. The 150th fact is that in the very first moments of the explosion, before the light even reaches us, our deep detectors would likely catch the great burst of ghostly neutrinos pouring from the collapsing core. These particles, born in the heart of the dying star, would arrive slightly ahead of the light, giving astronomers a precious early signal that the great event had begun. It would be the first time in history that we caught the neutrinos of a supernova so near and so bright. The star's dying heart would send its whisper first, a silent herald of ghostly particles, racing ahead of the blaze to announce that Betelgeuse had, at last, begun to fall. The 151st fact is that in the language of brightness that astronomers use, the supernova of Betelgeuse might reach a brilliance thousands of times greater than the star shows today. The scale they use runs backward so that brighter objects carry smaller numbers, and the explosion could push Betelgeuse to a level rivaling the brightest the sky has ever offered short of the sun and moon. From a modest star of the first rank, It would leap to a beacon in a class entirely its own. Numbers can scarcely capture it, but by every reckoning, the dying giant would become, for a time, simply the most brilliant star that human eyes have ever seen. The 152nd fact is that the supernova of Betelgeuse would be a shared human experience unlike almost any other seen at once by people across every land and culture on Earth. Because Orion rides near the celestial equator, visible from nearly everywhere, the dying star would blaze above deserts and cities, oceans and mountains, watched by billions of eyes on the same nights. It would be a rare moment of common wonder for all humankind, a single event witnessed together by the whole world. In a time of so many divisions, the sky would offer one shared marvel, a dying giant, blazing for everyone, beneath the one roof of heaven we all share. The 153rd fact is that the rise of the supernova to its full brilliance will unfold over some days, not in a single instant, so that those watching will see the star climb, night by night, toward its dazzling peak. From the first brightening, it may take a week or two to reach its greatest glory, each evening finding it brighter than the last. There will be time to watch it grow, to marvel at its steady climb, to gather beneath it and wonder. It will not be a sudden flash and gone, but a slow, majestic swelling of light, a great crescendo played out over days upon the shoulder of the hunter. The 154th fact is that while the supernova blazes at its brightest, the nights on Earth will be gently brightened by its light, the darkness softened by a new and temporary lamp in the sky. The very darkest hours will be a little less dark, touched by the glow of the dying giant, much as they are softened by the moon. Creatures of the night might stir at the strange new light, and people walking beneath it will find the world faintly, beautifully illuminated. For a season, the Earth will have two lights in its night sky, the familiar moon, and beside it, blazing white upon Orion, the brilliant, fading fire of a distant star's death. The 155th fact is that when Betelgeuse explodes, it will be recorded and photographed and remembered as few events in history ever have been, captured by countless instruments and countless ordinary eyes alike. Every observatory, every camera, every phone turned upward will hold a piece of the record. Future generations will look back on the images as we look back on the great moments of the past. The death of Betelgeuse will become one of the most documented natural spectacles in all of human history. A wonder preserved in a million pictures, a shared memory of the night the shoulder of Orion caught fire and blazed for all the world to see. The 156th fact is that after its dazzling peak, the supernova will begin its long, slow fade, dimming gradually over many months as the great cloud of debris expands and cools. Night by night, the brilliant point will soften, slipping down from its impossible brightness back toward the ordinary ranks of stars, and then below them, until at last it fades from naked eye view entirely. The fading will be gentle and unhurried, a slow farewell drawn out across a year or more, and when at last it dims from sight, the shoulder of Orion will be left dark and empty, the great red star gone, its place among the winter stars quietly, permanently changed. The 157th fact is that once the supernova has faded away, the constellation of Orion will be forever altered, its bright red shoulder gone dark, the familiar figure left strangely incomplete. For all of human history, Orion has worn that warm red star, and every generation has known him by it. After Betelgeuse dies, the hunter will stride on across the winter sky, missing one of his brightest lights, changed for all the ages to come. The people of the far future will look up at an Orion we would scarcely recognize, a great figure with a darkened shoulder, and only the old stories to remember the red star that once burned there. The 158th fact is that whenever we do at last see the supernova, we must remember that the true event will have happened some 600 years before, the light only now completing its long journey to our eyes. The star we would watch exploding will, in truth, have died 6 centuries earlier, in an age-long past. We would be witnessing not the present death of Betelgeuse, but its ancient death, its light arriving faithfully across the dark after all those years. There is a gentle strangeness in that, to know that the most spectacular event we could ever witness would be, even as we watched it, already 600 years old. The 159th fact is that the death of Betelgeuse, whenever it comes, will surely stir something deep in the human heart, a mingling of awe and wonder and quiet reflection. To watch a star we have known all our lives blaze forth and then fade forever would be to feel, in a very personal way, the vast and patient rhythms of the cosmos, the truth that even the stars are born and live and die. It would be a humbling and a beautiful thing. And through it all, the sky would go on turning, gentle and unhurried, reminding us, in the passing of a giant, of the deep and steady heartbeat of the universe that holds us all. The 160th fact is that for now, all of this remains a wonder still to come, a magnificent spectacle waiting patiently in the future. While Betelgeuse simply glows on, warm and red and calm above the sleeping world, one day the sky will blaze and shadows will fall by starlight, and the whole earth will look up together. But not tonight. Tonight the giant rests, and so may you, holding gently in your mind the beautiful knowledge of what is to come, without any need to wait for it. Only the quiet marvel of it all, carrying you softly, easily, a little further down towards sleep. The 161st fact is that for all the tremendous violence of the supernova to come, there is one thing you may hold with perfect calm and certainty, that when Betelgeuse explodes, it will do us no harm whatsoever. The star lies so far away that all its fury will be softened and scattered across the vast gulf of space long before it reaches us. What arrives at Earth will be only a beautiful light, a wonder to behold, and nothing more. There is truly nothing to fear in it, only a great and dazzling gift for the eyes, and the certain, comforting knowledge that we and our world will be entirely, completely safe. The 162nd fact is that the reason for our safety is simply the great distance to Betelgeuse, some 600 light-years of empty space standing between us and the dying star. A supernova can indeed be dangerous, but only to worlds that lie very close to it, far closer than we do. For an explosion to threaten the Earth, the star would need to be within perhaps 30 or 50 light-years of us, and Betelgeuse is more than 10 times farther away than that. Its distance is our shield, an ocean of dark so wide that by the time the star's fury crosses it, nothing remains but gentle light, harmless and beautiful, arriving softly at our sky. The 163rd fact is that the harmful radiation and energy of a supernova, like all things that spread outward from a point, grow rapidly weaker with distance, thinning as they cross the vastness of space. What might be devastating a few light-years away is diluted, across 600 light-years, to something utterly gentle. The light and particles of the explosion spread over an ever greater sphere, until, by the time they reach us, they are spread impossibly thin. This gentle weakening with distance is a fundamental law of the cosmos, and it is precisely why so distant an explosion, for all its true violence, can touch our world only as a soft and harmless glow. The 164th fact is that when Betelgeuse explodes, our atmosphere, our climate, and all the life upon our world will carry on entirely undisturbed. The Earth has weathered the light of distant supernovae many times over its long history, and the coming death of Betelgeuse will be no different. No harmful surge will reach the ground, No damage will touch the living world. The birds will sing the next morning as always. The tides will rise and fall. The seasons will turn. Nothing of the ordinary rhythm of our world will be broken. Only the sky will be graced, for a while, with a brilliant new light, and then gently return to its old and familiar self. The 165th fact is that astronomers who study such things reckon that a supernova would need to lie within roughly 30 light-years of the Earth to pose any real threat to life, and no star capable of such an explosion sits anywhere near that close to us. The nearest candidates for future supernovae, Betelgeuse among them, all lie hundreds of light-years away, far beyond any dangerous range. Our corner of the galaxy is, in this sense, a safe and gentle place. We are surrounded by no near threats, and the great dying stars we can see, Betelgeuse most of all, are all comfortably, reassuringly distant, close enough to admire and far too far to fear. The 166th fact is that even the more exotic dangers sometimes imagined from supernovae, bursts of powerful rays or floods of fast particles, pose no threat to us from a star as distant as Betelgeuse. Such things, too, weaken with distance, and are further softened by the shielding of our own atmosphere and the Earth's magnetic field. From 600 light-years, whatever particles eventually drift our way, long after the light, will be so diluted as to be utterly harmless. Our world is well protected, wrapped in its gentle blanket of air and magnetism, and set at a safe remove from the dying giant, with nothing to fear from any part of its distant end. The 167th fact is that some supernovae can send out narrow, focused beams of intense energy, and people sometimes wonder whether such a beam might be aimed at us. But for Betelgeuse, there is no cause for concern on this account either. The ordinary core collapse explosion it will undergo is not expected to produce such a beam, and even if it did, the star's poles do not point toward the Earth. We simply do not lie in any line of fire. There is no aimed danger, no hidden threat, only a distant, unfocused, ordinary star death, spreading its light gently in all directions, and reaching us as nothing more than a beautiful glow. The 168th fact is that our Earth has already lived through the light of many supernovae across its long history, some of them closer than Betelgeuse, and life has carried on through them all. The rocks of our world even hold faint traces of ancient explosions, dustings of rare atoms sprinkled down from star deaths in the deep past. Life did not falter. It flourished. If those nearer explosions did no lasting harm, then surely the distant death of Betelgeuse will do none. A reassurance written into the very stones beneath our feet, that our world is old and sturdy, and has weathered the deaths of stars before and will again. The 169th fact is that it is worth holding this reassurance gently in mind, especially since the coming supernova is sometimes spoken of in dramatic and frightening ways. The truth is far kinder. Betelgeuse will give us one of the most beautiful sights in the history of the sky, and it will cost us nothing at all. There will be no disaster, no danger, no harm, only wonder. The dying of the giant is something to look forward to, not to dread. A gift of light awaiting us or our descendants, entirely safe to behold. A spectacle to be met with open eyes and an untroubled, peaceful heart. The 170th fact is that the great cloud of debris flung out by the explosion, the shattered body of the star itself, will expand outward into space but will never travel far enough or fast enough to trouble our distant world. Over thousands upon thousands of years, that expanding shell will spread through the space around Betelgeuse, thinning as it goes, and only after vast ages would even its faintest edge drift anywhere near our region, by which time it would be gentler than the softest breeze. The star's remains will enrich the space around it, but they will never storm across 600 light-years to reach us, posing no threat across all the long ages to come. The 171st fact is that it is only by the grace of distance that Betelgeuse is harmless. For to any world orbiting close to the star, its death would be an ending beyond all imagining. Any planets that may circle the great red giant will be utterly destroyed when it explodes, swept away in the blast. The very same event that will be, for us, a gentle and beautiful light in the sky, would be, up close, the most violent thing the universe can offer. Distance transforms catastrophe into wonder, and we, watching safely from 600 light-years off, receive only the beauty of it, and none of the fury at all. The 172nd fact is that there is a deep comfort in understanding just how safe we truly are beneath the stars, even beneath a dying giant poised to explode. For all the vastness and violence the cosmos contains, our own small corner of it is quiet, gentle, and well protected. The great dramas of the sky play out at distances too far to touch us, offering their beauty freely while keeping their dangers to themselves. To know this is to be able to look up at Betelgeuse, or at any star, with nothing but wonder, to feel held and safe beneath a sky that means us no harm and never has. The 173rd fact is that we may also take comfort in the sheer patience of it all. For Betelgeuse will most likely not explode for many thousands of years yet, long after all our nights have passed. There is no looming event to await with any anxiety, no date circled on any calendar. The star will die in its own slow time, as the stars always do, and whether that day comes soon or far in the future, it will find our world unharmed. We need do nothing but live our quiet lives beneath it, looking up now and then at the calm red giant, untroubled, unhurried, entirely safe beneath its ancient and gentle light. The 174th fact is that so much of the fear people sometimes feel about the cosmos comes simply from not knowing, and the gentle antidote is understanding. Once we grasp how distance softens all danger, how our atmosphere shields us, how far the great dying stars truly lie, the sky becomes not a place of hidden threats but of open wonders. Betelgeuse, rightly understood, is a marvel and never a menace. Knowledge turns dread into delight, and the more we learn of the star and its coming death, the more freely we can look up at it, with a heart at ease and a mind full of quiet awe. The 175th fact is that, in a sense, we occupy the most fortunate of vantage points, near enough to Betelgeuse to see its death in all its glory, yet far enough to be in no danger at all. It is as though the universe has set us at the perfect distance, a safe seat with a magnificent view, to witness one of its grandest performances. Closer, and we would be in peril. Farther, and the spectacle would be dim. But at 600 light-years, we have the best of both. A front-row seat, entirely safe, from which to behold, whenever the night comes, the brilliant and harmless death of a giant. The 176th fact is that if ever the thought of exploding stars should trouble a quiet mind at night, let this be the gentle answer, that the sky above you is safe, and has been safe through all the ages of the earth. No star near enough to harm us stands anywhere ready to explode, and the great dying giants like Betelgeuse are all far, far away. You may rest beneath the stars exactly as your ancestors did, in perfect safety, cradled by a sky that offers only light. There is nothing above you to fear tonight, only the calm, distant glow of ancient suns, keeping their quiet and harmless watch as you drift towards sleep. The 177th fact is that the deeper truth beneath all this is that the cosmos, for all its scale and power, has been remarkably gentle to our small world, cradling life upon it for billions of undisturbed years. The great violences of the universe unfold at safe removes, while our Earth turns quietly in its warm and steady orbit, sheltered and serene. Even a dying giant like Betelgeuse can offer us only beauty. There is a profound reassurance in that, the sense that we live in a corner of the universe that has been, and will remain, a safe and gentle home, beneath a sky that has always, in the end, meant us well. The 178th fact is that the safety of the coming supernova adds, if anything, to its wonder, for it means we can behold one of the mightiest events in the cosmos with a heart entirely at peace. There is no braver or purer form of awe than the awe we feel when we know we are safe, free to marvel without any shadow of fear. When Betelgeuse dies, we will be able to stand beneath its blazing light and feel only the fullness of wonder, untroubled and open. That is a rare and precious gift, to witness something so vast and so violent, and yet to feel throughout entirely and beautifully safe. The 179th fact is that once we have set aside all fear and understood how safe we truly are, we are free to turn our thoughts gently to what will remain after the great explosion has faded. For the death of Betelgeuse will not be a simple vanishing, but a transformation, leaving behind a strange and wonderful remnant, and a dark space upon the shoulder of Orion where a red star once burned. In the final part of our journey tonight, we will drift toward that quiet aftermath, the neutron star and the glowing wreckage the giant will leave, and the gentle, changed sky that its passing will one day bring. The 180th fact is that you may let go, now, of any last shadow of worry about the dying giant on Orion's shoulder, and simply rest in the beauty of it all. Betelgeuse is far away, and its death, whenever it comes, will touch us only with light. The sky above you is safe, tonight and every night, as it has been through all the ages of the world. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to fear, nothing to do but breathe and soften, and let the calm of the safe and distant stars settle gently over you, as you drift, quietly and easily, a little nearer to sleep. The 181st fact is that when the great explosion of Betelgeuse has spent itself and faded, it will leave behind not nothing, but something small, strange, and wonderful at the very heart of where the giant once burned. For while the outer body of the star is blasted into space, its collapsed core survives, crushed into an object unlike anything in ordinary experience. The red giant we know tonight will be gone, but in its place will remain a tiny, dense remnant and a vast, glowing cloud of scattered debris. The death of the star is also a birth, the making of one of the most extraordinary objects the universe allows, born from the ruins of the giant's final collapse. The 182nd fact is that the small remnant left at the center of the explosion will most likely be a neutron star, one of the densest and most remarkable things that exists anywhere in the cosmos. It will be the crushed and collapsed core of Betelgeuse, squeezed by its own gravity into a ball only some tens of kilometers across, no wider than a single city, yet holding more mass than our entire Sunday. Into that tiny sphere will be packed the crushed heart of a giant. It is almost beyond belief. A whole star's core, compressed into a ball you could drive across in minutes, left glowing faintly where the great red giant once stood. The 183rd fact is that the density of the neutron star Betelgeuse will leave behind is so tremendous that it staggers the imagination, for its material is packed as tightly as the very heart of an atom. A single spoonful of neutron star stuff would weigh as much as a great mountain, or more, here upon the Earth. Gravity so crushes the core in the explosion that its atoms are broken down and squeezed together into a single, impossibly dense mass. Nothing in our everyday world comes anywhere close to it. A teaspoon heavier than a mountain, a whole sun's core in a city-sized ball, the strange and wonderful ember left glowing at the heart of the giant's death. The 184th fact is that the neutron star born from Betelgeuse may spin rapidly, turning many times each second, for as the great core collapses it whirls faster and faster, like a spinning skater drawing in their arms. Some such neutron stars sweep beams of radiation around as they turn, flashing like cosmic lighthouses, and these we call pulsars. Whether Betelgeuse leaves such a beacon we cannot know for certain, but it is entirely possible. Where once a vast slow giant glowed, there might spin a tiny, swift, flashing star. A rapid heartbeat of light, pulsing steadily in the dark, the strange and lively child of the giant's quiet death. The 185th fact is that around the tiny neutron star will spread a vast and beautiful cloud of glowing wreckage, the scattered outer body of Betelgeuse, which astronomers call a supernova remnant. For thousands of years, this great shell of gas will expand outward through space, glowing softly in many colors as it goes, lit from within by the energy of the blast and the young neutron star at its center. It will be one of the loveliest sights in that far-off sky, a delicate, luminous cloud where a star once was. The giant will become a nebula, its shattered substance spread across the dark in a soft and shining veil, glowing gently for ages to come. The 186th fact is that as the remnant of Betelgeuse expands and drifts, it will carry the star's substance out into the surrounding galaxy, enriching the space around it with the elements forged in its long life and its violent death. The carbon and oxygen it made while living, and the heavier elements born in the explosion itself, will all be scattered into the great clouds between the stars. And from such enriched clouds, in the fullness of time, new stars and new worlds may one day form. The death of the giant sows the seeds of new beginnings, its scattered substance becoming, across the ages, the stuff of stars and planets not yet born. The 187th fact is that once the supernova has faded and the remnant grown too faint to see, the shoulder of Orion will be left dark and empty, the great red star gone from the winter sky forever. The neutron star it leaves behind will be far too small and dim for any eye to catch. And so, to those who look up in that distant future, Orion will simply be missing his warm red light. The hunter will stride on across the nights, changed and diminished, wearing only the memory of the star that once burned there, a darkened shoulder where, for all of human history until then, a great red giant had faithfully glowed. The 188th fact is that the people of that far-off age will look up at an Orion subtly stranger than the one we know, and perhaps they will tell stories of the red star that their distant ancestors, meaning us, once saw upon his shoulder. To them, Betelgeuse will be a thing of history and legend, a light that shone in the deep past and then died in glory. They will know it only through old records and old tales, and through the faint, expanding remnant, if it lingers. We are among the last long generations to know Orion whole, to see the red giant glowing where, one day, there will be only quiet dark. The 189th fact is that there is something precious in knowing that we, here and now, are among the countless generations privileged to see Betelgeuse alive and glowing upon the hunter's shoulder. For all of human history so far, people have looked up and found that warm red star exactly where it has always been, and so may we tonight. We share that sight with every generation that has come before us, back to the very first humans who ever gazed at Orion. It is a thread of continuity stretching across all of time, and you are part of it now, one more soul beholding the ancient red giant, just as your distant ancestors did. The 190th fact is that the story of Betelgeuse, from its birth in a cloud of gas to its death in a supernova and the scattering of its substance back into space, is the great cycle of the cosmos told in a single star. Out of old clouds it was born, and into new clouds it will one day give itself, and from those in time other stars will rise. Everything is passed onward. Nothing is truly lost in the slow and patient turning of the universe. The giant is one verse in an endless song, a single turning of the great wheel by which the cosmos forever remakes itself, out of the dust of what came before. The 191st fact is that in its long life and its coming death, Betelgeuse teaches us something gentle and true, that even the mightiest things must change and pass, and that in their passing they give rise to something new. The star will not simply end. It will transform, scattering itself into the raw material of future worlds. There is no true ending in the cosmos, only endless becoming. And there is a deep peace in that thought, that all things, even the great red giant, are part of one unbroken flow of change and renewal, forever passing gently onward into what comes next. The 192nd fact is that when we hold the whole story of Betelgeuse in our minds, its vast size, its great distance, its slow dying and its brilliant end, we may feel not small and frightened, but gently held within something immense and beautiful. We are made of the same star stuff the giant is made of, born of earlier stars that lived and died as it soon will. We belong to the cosmos and it to us. There is no loneliness in such vastness, rightly felt, only a quiet sense of kinship with the stars, and a soft, spreading peace at being part of so grand and patient a whole. The 193rd fact is that the great slow rhythms of the stars, the ages it takes a giant to live and die, can be a balm to the hurried human heart. Against the ceaseless rush of our days, the patient cosmos offers a different measure of time, one in which 100,000 years is but a moment, and all things unfold in their own unhurried season. To rest the mind against such slowness is to feel one's own worries soften and shrink. Let the deep, gentle time of the stars soothe you now. The knowledge that above your small night, the great giant simply glows, in no hurry at all, as it has for ages and will for ages more. The 194th fact is that as you lie here now, drifting toward sleep, the light of Betelgeuse is falling gently upon the world outside, as it has upon every night of your life and every night of all the lives before you. That ancient red glow, 600 years in the crossing, is arriving even now at the darkened earth, soft and warm and faithful. You need not see it to feel its quiet company. Somewhere above the roof and the clouds, the old giant keeps its watch. A distant red star, breathing slowly in the dark, shining its patient light down upon your rest, as gentle and as constant as ever. The 195th fact is that we have wandered far together tonight, from the shoulder of Orion to the vast size of the red giant, from its great distance to its dimming and its dust, from its coming death to the strange remnant it will leave, and through it all runs a single quiet thread, the deep and patient beauty of a star living out its long life against the dark. There has been nothing to fear in any of it, only wonder, and wonder is the gentlest companion into sleep. Let all these thoughts of the great red star settle softly now, and carry you easily and without effort down toward the welcoming dark of rest. The 196th fact is that of all the stars in the sky, Betelgeuse is one that seems to invite quiet reflection. An old giant glowing red and warm, patient and unhurried, near the end of a long and magnificent life, there is something in its slow dying that speaks gently to us of the passage of time, of endings that are also beginnings, of the deep calm that lies beneath even the greatest changes. To sit with it in the mind is to feel one's own cares grow small and soft. And so we sit with it now, one last quiet moment. The great red star and the sleeping heart, keeping each other gentle company in the dark. The 197th fact is that perhaps the deepest gift of Betelgeuse is not its size, nor its distance, nor even its coming glory, but the quiet way it invites us to look up and to wonder, and in wondering to grow calm. When you find that warm red star upon the hunter's shoulder, You are joined to every soul who has ever gazed at it, and to the vast and patient cosmos it belongs to. The worries of the day grow small beneath such a light, and the night, so wide and so deep, becomes not lonely but tender. A great soft dark, holding you and the old red giant gently together, and drawing you slowly down towards sleep. The 198th fact is that in all the long story we have followed tonight, spanning millions of years of a giant's life and the vast reaches of space between us and it, there is really only one thing asked of you now, and that is simply to rest, and to let the wonder of it all carry you gently down towards sleep. Betelgeuse will glow on above you, patient and unhurried, for ages yet to come. There is nothing at all you need to hold on to now, nothing to do, nowhere to be, only to breathe and to soften, and to let the last of the day dissolve quietly into the gentle dark. The 199th fact is that as your breathing slows and your thoughts grow soft and dim, you might imagine yourself drifting gently upward toward that warm red star, up past the clouds and the cold clear air, into the calm and boundless dark where Betelgeuse glows quietly upon the shoulder of Orion. There is no hurry out there, no fear, no weight of any kind, only the slow, serene, ancient light of a great and gentle giant. And you may let yourself drift up toward it now, softly and easily, into the welcoming dark of sleep, carried on the patient glow of the old red star. The 200th fact is that long after this night has passed, and long after all our nights have passed, Betelgeuse will still be glowing there upon the shoulder of Orion, warm and red and faithful, keeping its slow and patient watch over a sleeping world, just as it does above you now. So let your thoughts grow quiet, and let the last of the day dissolve into the dark, and drift gently upward with that ancient red star, into the calm and endless night. Rest now, sleep well, and thank you for drifting with me beyond the stars.